Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, Going Nowhere. It's been a minute for us because we haven't had our podcast for a little while now because John was visiting India. So I think today's topic of discussion should be John survives India. And because I know, John, you went to one of the largest gatherings in the world in Kumbh Mela, right? If I'm pronouncing it
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So Maha means great, and then Kumbh, I don't know what it means actually. But yeah, Kumbha Mela is a Hindu festival, although Hindu might be a problematic term, but anyway, a popular festival for Indians, for people of Indian religion, and yeah, it's a gathering at there's three rivers. I think one's mythological.
Okay.
But or at least but it's positive it's there, but it can't be seen. But yeah, so it's a tripartite like meeting of rivers, and that's seen as a very holy spot. And so yeah, they meet every 12 years for a Maha Kumbh Mela, I think. So Maha means great, it's a great Kumbh Mela, and I think they do something every 3 years as well, and it's all done by I believe moon cycles and that so it's like celestial
Hmm. And
uh,
and am I
calendar.
correct to think that this was a larger version of this? Because I was reading somewhere that this is the one that happens every 144 years, which is like a larger version of these,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
smaller versions of
Yeah,
these gatherings.
it's called the Maha Kumbha Mela, so the great Kumbha Mela,
Oh, I see. So it's
and
like,
it's to Jupiter's circumference around the sun or
oh,
something.
interesting.
Yeah,
So, this has been your first time to India, right? As far as I
first time to
know.
Asia actually. Yeah, so yeah, quite a culture shock, but
What the
it
culture
was good.
shock. Were there any first, before we get to the Maha Kumbh Mela gathering, was there any first impressions when you got there, got out of the airport, any kind of
Yeah, yeah,
any kind of noteworthy?
yeah. Even before I got out of the airport, I sort of realised I was a bit out of my depth. So um, I flew in to Delhi around, I guess, 3 a.m., so early in the morning, and then I took another short flight to Prayagraj, which is where the this Kumbh Mela was being held. And so I got to the flight. I got off the flight around 6 a.m., so very early, and then I had to get a taxi to the my hostel, and which was quite close to the site of the Kumbh Mela. And so then I think I didn't have any cash because for some reason rupees is very hard to get hold of,
Oh,
and at least at the last minute in the UK.
okay.
And I sort of thought I'll just withdraw some stuff from my cash machine in India. But yeah, like I think I couldn't find any cash machines at the airport, so I had to get a taxi though. So yeah, so I had to get the taxi. So I tried to speak Indian, and yeah, I failed at queuing because even though I was only a meter away from the person I needed to speak to, people just push in. There's no concept of queuing in India, it seems. So yeah, eventually I just got the memo that I just needed to be more forceful, and yeah, so
So
I
you
got
needed,
to.
yeah, you needed to be assertive and kind of go for it. There's no, it's like a different sort of culture, I suppose. And
Yeah, it's almost like it's not even seen as rude to just push in, which is quite counterintuitive to how Brits see things.
well, I think everyone in the UK loves a good queue. I swear.
Yeah, I guess it's
Uh,
part of we don't love it, but it's a cultural thing. But yeah, like I don't think it's just India that violates the Brits' view of what queues should be. But yeah, we so I eventually got to speak to the person to get the taxi, and obviously trying to speak English it was problematic, but I got through the message. And the trouble is, I got through the message I needed a taxi, but I didn't get through the message that I didn't have any money to pay for it.
Oh, that's not good. That's not a good start already, John.
So he basically, the guy at the taxi counter took me outside the airport to meet the taxi driver he sort of hired to take me to the place. So yeah, he took me to the place, and I was like saying, yeah, I actually don't have any money. So, but yeah, like I wasn't getting that message through. So I got in the taxi, and yeah, like quite a old car, and then I was flung into the streets of India, which that was yeah, it strikes you straight away in terms of how different it is.
Oh,
The
oh,
driving is as crazy as
oh,
you get told, and just
I'm
this
still
taxi.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, your camera seems to be going. But yeah, the taxi driver was like opening the door every so often because he seemed to have some sort of phlegm in his throat that he was trying to clear. So he was like gurgling that up, and then he would open the door while driving, and then just spit it, just so he could spit it out. He did that like at
Like
least five.
physically opening the
Yeah,
door of the moving car that you're in
yeah, yeah.
and spitting out.
Yeah, and it's almost like that thing, that sort of thing is just like that's what's done in India. It's not like even it's a problem. It's like there's so many things on the Indian motorways or the Indian roads which would be illegal in the UK, but in the India, it's almost like they don't have any rules, or at least they don't enforce them.
I
Um,
think he wasn't wearing a seatbelt then. If he was able to lean out of the car of the moving car.
I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't wearing one. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, it would be quite difficult to lean out of the car while you're wearing a seatbelt and kind of spit out. I think. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe. Yeah, I think he could have been wearing a seatbelt, but I'm really not sure. But yeah,
okay.
like I'm sure he would have no qualms with not wearing a seatbelt. It's almost like over my time in India and crossing streets and getting rides with in tuk tuks and getting rides in taxis and even getting rides on the back of bikes. It's and with like no helmets and yeah, crossing roads and basically just the traffic's just going like non-stop. But basically, you just have to cross and just almost put your hand out and
Stop
just
people
hand of
and
God. And people just stop. People are very reactive. It's
do they?
yeah,
I,
it's a very although it seems like they're really bad drivers on the face of it, they're
mm,
actually really reactive. Maybe so yeah, it makes you think that actually perhaps us Brits, or at least people
mm.
in other cultures, are maybe overly cautious about. And like, actually, road travel is a lot safer than we think. But also, I think if I was to take those habits back over to the UK, the yeah, probably you would end up in some sort of crash because other people wouldn't be very.
That's
If everyone was very on
yeah.
it and reactive and knew that these things might happen, then there would probably be very few road crashes. Um, it's just that people they don't expect to be
Mm.
unexpected in the UK, whereas in India, the unexpected is not unexpected. Just things just happen.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I do think if you're living in this kind of environment, you're obviously so much more switched on about everything that's happening to you. If you're like in the busy um, streets of a huge town like that, where, as you said, so many things are happening all at the same time, you're not like putting on your sat nav and leaning back and letting the car drive. You're there fully switched on, fully aware, hyper aware even of what's happening around you. And I think
Mm.
this is not very often the case with like driving around the UK, for example, maybe where it's quite everything is as expected. I think you very often you don't really expect anything to happen. I
Mm.
think at least while I've been driving around, you're there on the motorway and you just cruise and it's fine. Um, but it's interesting you say that there's so many differences even just from the way people move around to how they drive to how they communicate with others and just the everyday life.
Yeah,
um
yeah, yeah. So it's first time in Asia, so obviously a lot of stuff is going to be different to me. So it was quite nice to experience. It's almost like although I traveled quite a lot, it's almost like I hadn't traveled properly.
and
So
and and
because I'd
despite all
never.
that, you didn't while you're there, you didn't witness any accidents then so far, as far as I can
Uh,
tell.
I did experience one very slight accident when we were getting I was getting a tuk tuk back. No, I think I was getting a motorboat back actually. I was getting a motorboat back from the end of the day of a Kumbha Mela, and yeah, it was very busy. But we'd had like loads of crowds just walking through these roundabouts, as well as tuk tuks, as well as bikes. The cars were rare because the roads had been shut, so I guess it was only cars going short distances from one house to another. But yeah, like it was just amazing to see loads of people just walking across roundabouts. But yeah, like we had the accident there. It was I was on the back of his motorbike, grabbing hold for dear life, but trying to not grab too hard because it's hard to know what to grab onto. Um, but yeah, like he clipped the this bicycle.
Oh.
He didn't. Nothing bad happened, but yeah, it could have been quite nasty, like if he'd hit his hand or something.
Mm.
Um, and I think he was very close to hitting his hand. So yeah, like there was definitely like a knock, but no one went over, and so it was okay. And it's almost like yeah, things. I would be quite surprised if I actually saw an accident. I think it's yeah, quite rare almost. And if it does happen, it would be just a clip.
Mm. Interesting. I do wonder what is the difference between fatal accidents in the UK, for example, in the roads of the UK, comparing that with the fatal accidents in the roads of India.
Mm.
I do wonder if, despite all this kind of seeming chaos that, that you're describing, if people actually don't actually have that many
Yeah,
serious accidents.
it's a like it looks like chaos, but actually it's like an orchestra, and it's all everyone's sort of working together, and it actually sound is a big part because everyone's hooting. That's one of the things you see what strikes you first about when you get on the streets of India is you can't go 5 seconds without hearing a hoot, and people. That's another thing which is a culture shock because in Britain, if someone hoots, it's usually they're angry at you.
It,
Whereas,
or you're holding right before an accident. You know, you're trying to avoid an accident usually, like trying to make someone alert. At least that's
yeah, well,
when
that's
I'm.
definitely the latter thing is what they're trying to do in India. So there's not that much animosity usually when people are hooting. They're just hooting near constantly, so that they can remind anyone who they're overtaking or they're near that they are there, and so it alerts them. It gives other vehicles a sense of where you are, and so that allows the reduction in accidents.
Interesting. That's quite interesting. I suppose you're dealing with such a huge volume of vehicles and people and everything else that, as you say, maybe echolocation is the best way to
Yeah,
to perceive people around you
it is a
through
form
the
of
sound
echolocation.
of the horns and stuff. So
Mm.
fair enough.
And you even got
Um,
quite a few trucks which had on the back of them the words "blow horn." Interestingly, in English, but yeah, it's
oh,
they're actually asking you to blow your horn.
so they can know
Hear
that you're
you.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good then. So I'm very interested to hear about your experience in the Maha Kumbha Mela, and I want you to kind of go through it for the viewers of our podcast because I know I've heard of it, but it's really good for you to describe the whole experience really of your day there because as far as I didn't even know it until you mentioned it to me, and then I looked into the Maha Kumbha Mela
Yeah, surprising
gathering.
how few people know about it. Yeah, it's the biggest gathering of humans on the planet.
Precisely, as far as I understand, we're talking about something in the region of 400 million people gathering for this
Yeah,
event,
yeah, it may well be, but that's over. It takes place over a month and a half. So a lot of people,
spread out, I
unless
suppose.
you're a
Yeah,
local, you're probably gonna just come for a day or two, bathe once or twice, and but yeah, there's certain special days in that 1.5 months. So
fair enough.
and
So
I was on the final day, so I
start
it's,
from the basics. Like,
yeah.
what is the purpose of the event?
Yeah, so it seems at least on the face of it, it's the basic idea is you're coming to a very holy place, and water is extremely holy in Indian religion, and so you're coming to this holy place to bathe, and the idea is that bathing will take away your sins or your karma. I don't know if it's all of your karma if that's potential, or it's just it will reduce it. Um, but yeah, like so that's why there's such an attraction to come, because seems to be a human tendency to want to let go of um, negative thoughts, feelings, and tensions, and yeah, that's probably the motivation people are coming, is to cleanse themselves
It's
and
almost like a purification ritual, spiritual purification
yeah, yeah,
ritual.
which makes you think it's not almost not that different to Christianity in many ways. And you could someone actually mentioned a week before I went to this event in London, and that was part of the reason that inspired me to finally actually book the tickets, but to go to India. But they were suggesting something. Someone asked from the audience whether they could ever see a Kumbha Mela in the UK, and I think yeah, you probably.
Where in the Thames River?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, you probably need somewhere equally dirty. No, yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure as bad as Thames has been rumored to be, I'm sure you might match the dirtiness.
yeah. Well, I think I think you would like under the right circumstances, it wouldn't be a million. Like it would appeal to people, I reckon, and you'd probably get quite a lot of people doing it if you created the right spiritual narrative around why that site was important, and you got enough people going, and then more and more people would want to go because it's become once something becomes big, then it becomes bigger.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Um, so you went alone, first of all, as far as you told me. You went
Yeah,
alone
yeah,
to
I only
this.
booked it a week before. I had been thinking about it for a month before that, but yeah, I started booking things up a week before, so it was a very spontaneous trip. It just things sort of opened up, and yeah, I wasn't quite sure if my finances would allow it, but it felt like the right thing to do at that time, so I decided to pull the trigger.
Your bravery, I feel, has no limits to this. To go to this sort of gathering of millions
Well,
of people on your own in a country that you've never been before as well.
yeah,
Um,
I didn't really see it as that risky, but I guess there are risks, of course, but yeah, don't know.
and all right then, fair enough. Talk to us about the day itself. Um, how did you move through the city? How did you? Because you've told me you've bathed in the river waters,
I did, yeah,
right? And
yeah.
you met people there, and and tell me a little bit about the experience itself. Was there was there as many people uh, as you expected to see? Was it as many people during your days there?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
There was a lot of people. I think I looked after the event, and there was. It seems like it was the last day of the Kumbha Mela I went, and so it was a kind of special day. It wasn't like the most special day, but it was one of the special days. And I believe there was probably around 15 million people there that day. Obviously, going in and out, so it was over a day. People were going in to bathe and then coming out. But yeah, it was a lot of people, and right in the center, in that hub where the three rivers meet, you basically couldn't move. You would like sardines. So
I actually read the other day that there were fatalities as well in the Kumbh Mela.
yeah, yeah. No, there was two instances where several people died. I think there was one on the. I think it was the biggest day, and that was actually at the event itself. And there was another one which was a rush at a train station in Delhi, actually. So obviously, a lot of people coming to Delhi and then going there, but still, that's quite far away from where the event was happening. But yeah, it was probably caused by the number of people going to the event.
Wow. And how did you feel being in such a crowd of people? Did you feel there was something special about it, or was it just a crowd of people? Was there anything profound about a gathering of so many? millions of people in one place.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was. Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's about many people, and then all believing it to be very like a an important event was yeah, quite profound. And yeah, to see the number of humans there are on the planet, like because we know there's a lot of people on the planet, but we really have once we can't really imagine above 1,000 people. So it's yeah, it's amazing how many people there really are. And that's this is still a very small proportion of the total number of people on the planet. So um, yeah,
Did you feel at all overwhelmed by the crowds?
not particularly. I didn't go like once it started getting like sardines. Like we were literally, you really were struggling to move, and you were if you could move a little bit, but you were like wriggling. Um,
Jesus.
and so once it got that bad, this was already there was lots of people bathing around that around the area already. So I was like, yeah, I could get to the right pinnacle spot, right in the middle. But I was thinking, like, why spend an extra hour going another, I don't know, 100 meters? So yeah, I
Wow.
decided, yeah, I'd already been. It's already quite tight, so
Mhm.
let's just bathe here. Um, so yeah, like yeah, I had my phone on me obviously because I need to navigate back, and so that's my worry is I can't really leave it on the side of the river because someone may well just take it, or it might get
Mhm.
trampled
You
on
never find it again.
or lost. Yeah, yeah,
You never find it again in this many people. If you left it anywhere, it'd be gone.
yeah, yeah. So I had this passport like sachet carrier. I don't know
Okay.
if you've seen them yet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They made a whole passports, I think, in money.
Yeah, I've
So,
seen that
and
before.
I put it round rather than my waist. I put it round here so I could actually go in the water. But I didn't plan to go underwater because it was like there's a lot more orifices in your head. So I thought my odds of I wanted to go in because it's part of the event and you come all this way and this is a rare event, so you might as well at least get a taste of the experience, or hopefully not a taste.
One
Uh,
of the days, yeah,
yeah, because
metaphorical days in this case.
the water did seem very dirty. And probably cholera filled after people had been bathing in it for a month and a half. Um, so yeah, like I put this sachet up here, and yeah, then my trainers. I was thinking, should I take my trainers off? Probably. I'm just going to. They'll dry off quite quickly after I come out anyway. So I decided to go in with trainers on as well.
Mm.
And so I went in and walked around a little bit, and but I bumped into this Indian girl with her family, and she's basically saying you need to go under 7 times.
To make sure all the orifices are filled up in this case.
Maybe. Yeah, I guess seven's a spiritual number, it seems, and yeah, like so, it seems
It's
like
interesting you say because isn't seven very spiritual in obviously it's in Christianity as well. 7 days for the creation of the world and everything else.
yeah,
And
I think if you ask ChatGPT, a number of uh, like instances in different religions where seven is important, you get a huge list of things, and you're like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, and then you ask it again, and you get another list of things, and then again, and it's just it comes up so much,
so prolific.
which is strange. I don't know what to make of that, but yeah,
Fair
it's
enough. Back to the story.
back to a story. Yeah, yeah. So I hold my nose, and she's opposite me, like my coach, in terms of she's showing me how to do it. Not that you necessarily need instruction of doing it, but yeah. So I was I didn't know whether I should do it, but I sort of it felt like the right thing to do. So yeah, I decided to go with it. Um, so yeah, I just hold my nose, dip down below the water, and then when I come up again, and then I don't really want to open my eyes, or obviously I do want to open my eyes to sort of get a recalibration before I go under again. I don't want to open my eyes too much because I'm worried that the water will leak in and I get like cholera or something. Um,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, like I then recover and then I do another one and then I go 7 times. Um, and yeah, then that was quite a
So
nice
so
experience.
so was she holding you down, or like
Oh
not
no, she
holding
was
you?
just like opposite me, sort of
Okay,
doing like acting like a mirror in terms of
okay.
showing me how to do it. So yeah, like we do that, and then I get chatting with her and her family, which is really nice. I think I wasn't. I guess you might come to one of these events and sort of expect some sort of like really spiritual event to happen, or like God to be there, or in some sort of form. But uh, in a way, it was quite profound for me in terms of just connecting with people, and sort of getting dirty in the
Mm,
muddy water, but also being very connected with people. And I was quite popular, I guess, in terms of because I was one of the only people who looked like me. I think I only saw one other Westerner, and always many people, um, and obviously
yeah.
being blonde and blue eyes as well, and so yeah, I get chatting with his family, and then one of them's like, "Can we take a picture of you?" And then they go off out of the water, and then go and grab their camera, and then we do some pictures, and yeah, the number of selfies I took that day, I think at least with 50 people. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, so going anywhere, you have to add on a few minutes, or because
For all the people stopping you
yeah,
and
yeah,
wanting to.
like every 10 minutes at least, you'll get at least one person stopping you and taking asking you to take a picture. And the trouble is, once you take one picture, then you're likely to get another one and another one because they see that you're willing to take pictures. But I actually really enjoyed it because it, in a
You're the
way,
main character.
I remember. Well, obviously, yeah, you can enjoy it for that reason, and probably I was a bit. It was quite a novelty and that was quite a culture shock as well. But it was also it gave me an opportunity to connect because obviously first day in India
Mm,
and this huge crowd, but you could feel quite isolated because you don't know anyone. I didn't
mm,
know anyone in India pretty much on that first day, and it gave people a reason to come up to me
mm,
and connect and be happy to connect and shake my hand or yeah, we had a photo and put our arms around each other, and we were doing that in the water as well. So not only did the family take a picture of me when I left them and walked to someone else, soon after I got someone else asking me to take a picture, and I thought that was quite strange because it was in the river as well. It wasn't
mm.
just it. So this was some of these people had traveled for ages to do this very sacred thing, and almost like taking a picture would to me seem like it cheapens it a little bit, but no,
I understand. I
didn't seem to
understand
be a
this.
problem.
I understand this perspective, but I also think about it in the opposite way. These people traveled for hundreds of miles, let's say, and they came to this event. And what would be the last thing they expected to see? Is a pale, blonde, blue-eyed British guy in the middle of all these millions of people. Imagine this from their perspective.
Hmm.
These people might have never seen a tourist, maybe,
Yeah,
in
I
their
think
whole lives.
especially at this event because you get so many people coming from everywhere in India because it is such a, especially this one, it's 100 every 144 years, even every 12 years is a big one, and even if you're young, you don't know if you're going to live another 12 years. So it's like a thing you should do in Hinduism. There's a lot of things you should do in Hinduism, such as go to Varanasi once in your life.
Yeah.
Uh, so there's things you should do because they're spiritually important. That's the belief.
Mhm.
So yeah,
And despite the photo, as you say, maybe cheapening the experience, I can imagine them thinking that this is so profound that this has to be recorded to show their families later on and be like, in all of these millions of people, I actually met this guy who was there.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think it is a more of a novelty factor in terms of there just wasn't very many people who looked like me. But I was grateful for that because it really allowed me to connect with people. On obviously, I wasn't seeing them for that long, but it allowed me to them to initiate the contact, and so I was able to just yeah, take lots of photos with people, and it was yeah really quite nice. Then I could chat with them and just ask them a bit about where they're from and and other stuff. So yeah, it was a really nice experience in that way. So in a way, that was the most spiritual thing for me. Although it wasn't spiritual, it was really profoundly normal. But yeah, it was
Mhm.
good. It was a good experience. Um, so yeah, like I get out of the water after probably I was probably there 10, 15 minutes, and then yeah, I start walking off away from the main site. So obviously there's still loads of crowding around, and I'd been told by someone in the hostel that there were still some Nath yogis. I think it's not Nath yogis, a type of yogi, a type of um, group who
What
group who
what are
follows the god Shiva.
sorry? What are these?
They're a group of people who follow the god Shiva.
Okay, okay,
Um,
interesting.
and so they're like often ascetics, or they live almost like monastic lifestyles, although not necessarily. Yeah, probably in ashrams. But yeah, they come to the Kumbha Mela and they got loads of tents, and they often stay there for a month or so. But because it was the last day, a lot of them had already moved out. I've been told. But I've been told that there might still be some in a certain area. So I decided to try and find that area, and so I go away from the point of the meeting of the Three Rivers, the direct center, and then there's a bridge across, and
Yeah.
all the bridges
Mm.
are one way. So I took the bridge across, and on the other side, I soon see a tent with like about 4 or 5 of these yogis in, and they beckon
Wow.
me. They beckon me over. They're like, "Yeah, come in."
Wow.
And so I
That
just come and sit in their tent for a while and understand absolutely nothing of what they're saying. Yet they're quite insistent in trying to explain to me uh, what like explain to me what their beliefs are and what I should know, but also try and get money from me at the same time, which is interesting. And like many times in India, I was struck by the a blend of one people spirituality, but also people cheapening it.
pragmatism. You need the money still.
Pragmatism, money, yeah, like you could say it's cheapening it, but actually, if religion, if everyone were atheists in India overnight, so many people would lose their well-being in so many different
Mhm,
ways, like
mhm,
especially for poor people. Spirituality is incredibly important,
mhm.
um in
So,
terms
so,
of
so there
making
was a
money.
language barrier there, but there was still obviously you could pick out some of the things they were trying to kind of tell you and kind
Yeah,
of.
I think I probably got a sense that they were asking for money quite early on, and then they get a bit more insistent about it, and then you were like, oh yeah, of course they were asking for money, and yeah, then you were just like, I opened my pouch with my phone in and a few notes, because this was my first day in India, so I'd taken a few notes out from the ATM, which the taxi driver had taken me to. But
Okay.
yeah, so I got I didn't have that much money, so I did have some, but yeah, I gave them some, and then they taught me a bit more in terms of try to explain in whatever language they were speaking about things. And interestingly, they showed me a leaflet, and
Okay.
there was always different Indian gods, I guess, and Buddha was included as well, and interestingly, Jesus as well.
Really?
Yeah,
But how? Where was Jesus on this leaflet? Like, where
well,
was?
it wasn't at the top. I don't know if it was a hierarchical thing. They might have said like Shiva was at the top, but it could also be that there was just there is no hierarchy. There's just
Okay,
a number of these people that they venerate.
like deities of all kinds.
Yeah, and it was the picture of Jesus, which I did see on another poster going through a street somewhere else in my trips in India. Is Jesus with the Sacred Heart, which is a depiction of Jesus with, I believe it's a heart and
Mm,
a crown of thorns around it, and a flame above the heart. So I think it's a symbol of like open heartedness, but suffering as well, which is yeah,
mm,
what Jesus the crucifixion and stuff symbolizes.
interesting. And was there any? other takeaways from your, meeting with the yogis, as you said? Like, did they try to teach you, as you said, and they gave you the leaflet? And did they um, try to show you any kind of like meditation techniques or anything like that, or anything?
No, I think the only thing I got clearly is that they would talk about a path, and
Okay.
I think it they were sort of suggesting that the path is devotion to Shiva, which is it's one of the most important gods in Hinduism. So
Mm,
the destroyer god, which is an interesting thing. The destroyer god is more venerated than the creator god, but also Shiva is sort of seen as creative energy as well, and he destroys, but in destruction is the creation as well.
very interesting.
So yeah,
Okay.
like he's probably in talking to lots of people in my travels in northern India, like Shiva is probably the most venerated I came across. Krishna's quite high up as well. A few for Hanuman.
What
Yeah.
about Buddha?
Yeah, well, Buddha is obviously more Buddhism, but he's also can be seen as quite important in Hinduism as well. But yeah, like he's not like seen as like the main. Like most Hindus
N-
won't see him as like the main guy.
no.
So and also there didn't seem to be as many Buddhists that I came across as I
Really?
thought I might come across. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would. That's why I asked, because I would think there would be a
Buddhism
lot of.
started in India, but it flourished everywhere else except India, at least later on.
Interesting.
Like if that flourished in all the other countries around India, but not in India itself so much.
Hmm. Fair enough. And and then after your meeting with the yogis, what happened then?
Yeah, so I get out of the tent and um, now my phone is quite low battery, so I'm a little bit worried about getting back. Also, I'm low money as well because I'd given away money to them because but like they did seem quite friendly, but also they had sort of that vibe that if you didn't give them money, that you might end up
In trouble.
in trouble. Like yeah. So, so
Okay.
yeah, so I'd given them a bit of money, but not loads. But yeah, I still didn't have that much money left. But I wasn't foreseeing being out for that long, and so
Mm.
I didn't take my phone charger. And yeah, I thought I still at that point I thought, oh, I have enough battery to get back to the to my hostel. Although the journey was taking longer because I was having to take pictures with lots of people.
Mm.
But yeah, like then things started going more wrong.
What time in the day was that when things started going wrong
Hmm,
as well? I was
maybe
wondering.
like 2 p.m.
Okay, so it was
Sort of
still quite, I
middle of
because I
the
was
day.
thinking, yeah, middle of the day, also quite hot from what you had told me as well.
Yeah, well, I just come from cold England, and this was probably about 30 degrees, so nothing like terrible, but it was yeah hot,
Yeah,
and
but I can
I
imagine
didn't
30 degrees in an open field with no people isn't the same as 30 degrees with 15 million people around you.
maybe, and I also there's a lot of sort of deserty area, and I didn't have any water with me other than the cholera water around me. Um, so, but yeah, I just didn't expect to be out for that long. But yeah, like, so I crossed over this one-way bridge. So I couldn't cross back. So I thought that's no problem. I'll just go along the river. The river sort of runs down if you're looking from north to south. So it's
Mm,
running down here. This is where I bathed, the meeting of the three rivers. So yeah, I walked up the river a bit and was thinking, oh, I'll just find the next bridge. It must be one way the other way. I think the next bridge was closed, and so that was probably took about 10 minutes walking to get there. And I thought, okay, I'll just walk on to the next one, and then walk on to the next one, and that one is one way, the other way, so the same way as I'd walked across before. And I was like, okay, how come there's not one which goes the other way? But I thought, okay, let's just go on to the next
Maybe all
one.
the others were the opposite way instead. All the bridges that went the opposite way were the other side.
Maybe I didn't understand it at all. Maybe I just got a bit unlucky. But yeah, there seemed to be bridges sort of every 10 minutes, and I kept walking to them, thinking, and I got told, I kept getting told, oh, the next one that will be, because I kept asking as well, like, how do I get back across? Because my hostel's the other side of the river. Um, and they're like, oh yeah, just go on to the next bridge. And so I keep getting told this, and it's like a mirage, just sort of thinking I'm going to get to where I need to go. And so I keep going up to the next bridge, and they're either closed or they're going the wrong way.
Yeah, one
But
way
they're
towards
one
where.
way, yeah. So I
Yeah,
can't get back across them. So and obviously, the more I go up the river, the more I have to come down the river again to get to my hostel.
of
So
course.
if I go up the river 1 hour this way, then I have to
It's
come
another
out
hour down. Yeah.
another hour down. If I have to go 3 hours this way, it's another 3 hours down. And that's, my phone is obviously getting lower and lower in battery, so I really need to find a bridge quickly. But I bump into this sort of Indian group of people probably around age 20.
Okay, so young adults
Yeah, a
then.
group of lads, and they sort of understand some English, but obviously not great. And they sort of say, just come with us. And I just decided, yeah, let's just go with them because they're going in this direction anyway.
Okay,
Um,
but you didn't think at the time. You didn't think there might be any foul play. You didn't think they might be leading you astray or leading you somewhere else, or
not at that point. The thought did crop into my mind later on. But yeah, I don't think there was any foul play, probably. Um, but yeah, so I kept walking with them, and I try and
Mm.
ask them, can I see Google Maps to just get some idea of where I am, because my phone has now died. So I'm sort of stuck, yeah, without phone, without water, and there's just slums or sort of deserty area around, so it's not exactly like anything in sight, like ATMs or shops or whatever. Um, so yeah, we keep walking up the river and keep getting to bridge which don't work for me to get across. And yeah, like, it's getting a little bit worrying. At least I got the people with me sort of gave me a bit of water, so that was the
Yeah.
immediate worry was that I would die of first. So yeah, like,
Dehydration, because if you, how come you didn't take a bottle of water when you went to this or something, like when you left your hostel?
I probably I don't know. Maybe I had brought a little small water, but by the time I'd
It
started
was
walking
okay.
afterwards, yeah, I had finished it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
But
really remember.
but they were meant to be leading you back, right? At first you said that
Yeah,
or
well,
at
I
least
was
you
saying I
thought.
want to get across to the other
Yeah.
side of the river because that's where my hostel is. Um, and they, yes, they said, "Oh, walk with us, and we'll find the next bridge." So eventually, we walk up this side of the river for a while, and there's lots of other people around. So yeah, it's a big sort of like pilgrimage almost, or big flow of people, and yeah, I probably will end up walking for about 3 hours in the end up this way, and and then we reached the sort of edge of the city, of which
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what the city is, whether it's a different part of Prayagraj or whether it's a local city to it. Um, so we walked to the edge of this city, and then yeah, I walk along the edge of the city and then trying to find a bridge still. Um, and then
And
I,
where were they going then?
well, actually, at that point, it dawned on me that they hadn't bathed yet that day, and they were going to bathe.
But they were going the opposite way from the meeting of the rivers, you know. So
Yeah.
how they're going to bathe if they're going the opposite way to where the rivers converge?
Well, it turns out I walked a really huge circle, which I don't quite
With them.
understand how geographically it worked, because it did seem like I was walking up one edge of the river. But when I
Okay.
finally asked someone for Google Maps and they understood, then I was actually sort of on the right side of the river that I wanted to be on, and not what up here, but actually down here next to where my hostel was. Although it was still a half an hour or 20-minute bike journey. But yeah, like I was just really weird. Like I really still don't know how I got to that point because I hadn't crossed any bridge. And as far
Uh,
as I know, I hadn't crossed back across the other side of the river, but I was the other side of the river.
wow, that's
So
I have no.
that was weird, but a good relief that I was there because I was thinking I was way off and stuck in another Indian city with now no money because my last 200 I gave away because this Indian woman came up to me and she put, you get these people in India, they put like sort of colored powder on your third eye area for
Oh,
some sort of blessing. And
interesting. But you have to pay for the blessing, of course. I take it.
yeah, well, I didn't know that at the time, so I guess I was a bit naive. But they'd come up to me, they put the blessing on, and then I sort of started walking off. I was just like, "Thank you," and started walking off. And then she got angry. She was like, "No, you had to pay me 200." And luckily I did have 200, so I just paid the 200. But then I had no money, and my credit card, which I had with me, which now could come in use because I was in the town area, and
Okay.
I needed to pay to get a motorbike ride back. Then yeah, some Indian guy called a motorbike on this sort of Uber-like app, and
Mm.
trouble is he didn't understand that I couldn't pay for it because I hadn't got any money, and I get taken to this ATM, and even though I tried to remember my pin for the card, I don't. Yeah, I didn't remember my pin, even though I'd written it down in my phone that morning, but
in,
my
the,
my
in the
phone had
phone that
died.
had died, isn't
Yeah,
it? Your
yeah.
luck.
So yeah, it's not like everything was going wrong, but yeah, like the person I was with was quite helpful, and yeah, he paid for my Uber bike back to the hostel, and then I was able to yeah, get back many hours after I thought I would have got back, and bathe off this or shower off the
Yeah.
cholera filled water, um, and yeah, that was pretty much my day.
Oh. You mentioned though at when we were talking about it, you mentioned that at some point you ended up in a bad area as well, where tourists weren't welcome at some point.
Oh yeah, like in the when I reached that what I thought was a city and walked along the edge of it. When I broke away from that the initial group of people I was with, because I sort of realised that they were going to the bathing site and they were
Mm.
taking me to the bathing site, and I was like, I've already bathed, and they didn't understand. But
Mm.
yeah, I sort of I was wanting to sort of just detach from them just conveniently. But actually, I got chatting to this guy who I think he had like his lower arm amputated, so
Mm.
he was intrigued to see me, obviously. So we got chatting a little bit, and then they sort of walked off, and then I stopped chatting to him after a bit, and went along this main street along the edge of the city, and then obviously there was houses sort of up the side on the slope of that road, and I wanted to just go and explore and see what the off roads are. And so I went up these quite steep stairs, and it's a very sort of quite a rundown area. And
Okay.
then I hear a shout behind me saying like,
Oh.
I assume like, where are you going? And then I come back and talk to this guy, and he's like, "Yeah, we don't like tourists here." And so I quickly
Oof.
am polite and just say, "Oh yeah, I'll go back down." And so yeah, I that was the end of that.
No exploration for you there, for sure.
No, no, unfortunately not. I don't know why I was really in my mind for exploring anyway, because but I guess
Li-
I like things couldn't get much worse anyway, so I thought I might as well just
Oh, they can always get worse. Like
well
I
maybe
think you're going there with a very naive mindset when you're in that far in a place you don't know, in a country that you don't know, in a city you don't know. All sorts of things could have happened. Um,
yeah,
oh,
yeah, maybe I was a bit naive. But yeah, anyway, yeah, that was not a problem. I think they just didn't like people maybe seeing the amount of poverty there is. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there was lots of what one of the images that strikes me is just yeah, like I have this top of this shop and there's
Mm.
no top of it, so the second level is just
Oh, it's
already
like a.
a wreck or a knockdown, like not even a ruin. Yet it was there once upon a time, and then you just got like these two naked 5-year-olds or whatever just sitting there and just sort of playing a bit maybe or watching what's going on in the street.
Mm.
So yeah, very
I'm,
very different to what I've been used to having never travelled to. I I guess it
and,
India's a third world country, at least in many ways it is.
but that's what I'm saying, and that this is where I'm saying the danger comes from. Even though you had no money on you, even if someone knew you had a phone in you in such a poor area, I can imagine you could be in danger just by someone wanting to realizing you have a phone and they might want to take the phone even.
Maybe yeah, but then I guess that wouldn't have been the end of the world because I did have another. But my phone was dead anyway, and I had another phone. I take two phones usually when I travel, so I had another phone
Okay.
at my hostel. So yeah, I
Yeah, yeah,
wasn't
but I'm
really
just
that.
saying you don't know how aggressive someone might
Yeah,
get.
yeah, you don't know.
Uh,
But I whether naive or not, I think I do think, and I might be wrong, but I do think, and my impression stayed the same throughout the trip. That although obviously there's always bad people, but there's the crime rate does seem quite low in India. I don't know if it's the culture or the law enforcement or whatever. Uh, but yeah, and people do seem to be often generally just helpful. And so, although it can feel like you're in a completely alien world and things are just completely different to how you're used to them, it
mm,
it almost felt a bit safer than perhaps most people would assume it was. And it was a bit like, yeah, throwing yourself into a river and sort of trusting that it would carry you, even if you didn't know exactly where, and that you would survive it.
okay. I mean, it's a good way to view it, but I think that it would have been better if you had someone else with you as well.
Probably, but I booked the trip last minute, so uh,
Yeah, I get that, but it's
yeah. But
just.
I did join halfway through my trip because I was there 2 weeks. But the second week I was with a group tour, which yeah was nice from a social point of view, but also from just not having to think about things too much or worry about things too much.
Hmm. Um, was there any other memorable times from the rest of the trip? Because obviously that day was quite special and quite interesting, quite adventurous. But were
Mm.
there any other times from the rest of the trip that you saw anything really interesting, or were you part of anything really special, or meet anyone special?
Yeah, maybe not as dramatic as the first day, but yeah, I met a lot of people who I very much enjoyed talking to and about finding out about their views on the world and yeah, and just appreciating who they were. Um, but yeah, like so on the, I spent another day in Prayagraj, mostly just recovering and just sleeping because I was quite frankly very tired from having done 2 flights and also spent most of the day walking the previous day.
Hmm.
So yeah, then I got a train to Varanasi at 9 p.m. the next day.
How
Um,
was the train? Because I've
oh
seen a
yeah,
lot of
man,
I've seen a lot of photos of trains in
it was
India where
it was better than UK trains. They
better
give
than
you
UK
they
trains.
serve you tea. I think it was
Wow.
like a better
Were you
like
in the India
I think
Orient Express?
yeah maybe not quite, but it was the maybe slightly better quality.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the videos I have seen is people hanging off all sides of the train, top,
yeah.
bottom, sides, back,
I think
everything.
that does happen, but it's they're like those tickets are dirt cheap.
Oh, I
So
see.
you could pay. I didn't pay that much for my ticket, probably like £5, I guess. And
But
and
but in local
you're
currency,
getting
that
pretty
would have
much first
been
class
yeah.
in
I
the UK.
can okay.
Yeah, so,
Interesting.
so it was a very comfortable 2 hour train journey to Varanasi. And Varanasi is one of the longest continuously lived in cities in the world. So
Really?
I believe 5,000 years. Although
Wow.
I haven't fact checked that, but yeah, that's
That's around from
3,000
the,
BC.
yeah, from the Mesopotamian times even,
Yeah, well, the
where we
Epic of
had.
Gilgamesh is 2000 BC roughly, so it's a lot older than that, which is yeah, I would have to fact check that, but it's interesting.
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
because that's like almost older than the Indus Valley civilization. So I don't know how they know it's that old, but interesting. And yeah, it is. The streets are clearly quite old, but they could well have been medieval. Like old is old sometimes when you're not a trained historian, or even if you are, it just looked old, and the alleyways were small, and yeah, it
Mm.
was quite quaint in that way, although there's still a lot of rubbish everywhere. And I think a lot of people have been visiting Varanasi because it was close to Prayagraj, where the Kumbha Mela was. And obviously, Varanasi is another place that many Hindus would want to
Mm.
visit at least once in their life. Um, so a lot of them would have gone there afterwards. And so, yeah, it was probably quite busy there. And there was a queue to the main temple there, which wrapped around many streets.
Wow.
And I believe people were queuing. I don't forget how many hours exactly, but I believe at least over 2 hours, maybe up to like 5 hours, just queuing to see this temple. I didn't
You
do that.
didn't. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think any temple would be worth that. But yeah, that's just my view. So yeah, I'm sure it's very special to a lot of people. And yeah, so people were queuing up for that. But what struck me in Varanasi was and I did know to expect this, but uh, open the openness to death and the display of cremation. Like I believe in this, there's several cremation sites, and you got the river running through the city, and
Okay.
on the side of the river you got all these ghats, which steps down to the river, quite steep steps, and
Yeah.
you also got some cremation sites, and so people,
So
as well as
so people would get cremated and then their ashes sent to the river from what
yeah,
the
that's
way you
the
describe it.
idea. Yeah, and the idea is also if you die in Varanasi, then you are released from the cycles of rebirth, which is the aim of a lot of Indian religions. To
Wow.
so that's the thinking. So a lot of people will come there thinking they're going to die soon, and so they'll make the trip there. So you got quite a lot of hospices there, including one my tour guide pointed out to me is one from who Mother Teresa's gave her name to. I don't know if she was there. I don't think she was, but it's interesting to see a um,
Mm.
Christian saint as has one of the hospices there, so people will come, and they obviously relatively correctly. Otherwise, they'll be there a very long time. But maybe that's also a nice place to be for a long time if you find it a very spiritual place. I would like to have spent longer there. Actually, I only spent a day.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, but yeah, there's this great openness to displaying uh, people who are being cremated, and so it was quite a strange experience to see. Like
How were, I know you say people were cremated. How were they cremated in like the traditional sense of like being openly burnt
yeah,
in
yeah,
common in open in the
yeah,
openness.
yeah. It was sort of you got all these gaps, these sets of steps, and then next to one of them where I disembarked my boat, because not my boat, but the boat I was on. So you got off the boat and then walked up the steps a bit, and then to the side there was this cremation area, and I believe they say 300 people get cremated there every day.
Wow.
Um, Although I can't quite fathom how that's possible because there didn't seem to have the space for that, and also it takes a long time to cremate a body.
Yeah.
Uh, um, and yeah, I see fairly close up this sort of cremation process happening.
Yeah.
and that's quite yeah, because
And
obviously we know that we're all going to eventually disintegrate. But yeah, that's to see that in the open was quite a culture shock, and also to see like tourists, including myself, I guess, walking past,
mm, was
and yeah,
yeah,
quite.
go on.
Even though it's a very spiritual experience, it's quite weird to have the tourists walking past, and my tour guide also like I sort of went to sort of see the area where they do cremations, and I walked back to the tour guide, and the tour guide said, "Do you want to go and take a photo?" It's just it
Like
was strange.
next
Yeah.
to the guy burning.
Well, I'm sure that happens, which is very strange.
I'm sorry.
Like,
I'm just.
it's like a
It's so
Logan Paul
insensitive.
thing, isn't it?
Well, in my mind, I know my invasive thoughts like just made that picture of someone being like,
Yeah, well, I'm
Instagram
sure
post.
that's the thing. I'm sure that happens, which is really weird because we're in the West. We're very apparently scared of death, but
I know,
also
but and
I
this
got the
is yeah.
yeah, I just got the impression that almost it's weird why Western tourists. I get the impression a lot of them probably would as just almost they see it as an attraction. It's
I know,
or,
and it's such a contrast because here in the West mainly, death is hidden, is away. It's like we don't
mm,
show it to anyone. It's only for the people who are grieving. It's only for the family. It's only for the close members. It's only for people that knew the person, and it's out of sight. It's in the churches. It's in the cemeteries. It's in these areas. They're not in the middle of the city. They're not in next to the river. They're not next to anywhere where the public is as such. No one
mm,
would just stumble on a funeral of someone getting cremated here. It's just it's so alien to us, I think,
yeah.
and that's why I'm kind of
But
um
also maybe it shows maybe part of the attraction to Western tourists of that, or at least they're not as shocked as one might imagine themselves to be, or someone else might imagine the
mm,
Western tourist to be, is because perhaps there is some sort of not craving, but the sort of acknowledgement that it's important to
mm,
also have death out there, have the macabre. And I think, well, obviously, we watch horror movies, a lot of people, and there's lots of other ways that people try and integrate that part of their personalities. Um, so yeah, maybe that was part of the attraction almost. And yes,
mm.
I'm sure you would get people taking pictures, maybe not selfies. That would be it seemed too far, but yeah, maybe selfies as well. Um, yeah, like
um
I didn't take a picture because I just felt yeah like that just
Uncomfortable.
yeah for me for my continence maybe there probably is nothing wrong with it if you really go into it, but
Mm.
yeah, it wasn't something I was particularly comfortable with or at least motivated to do. Um,
So
and yeah, but then I asked the tour guide again about it after a little bit, and I was like trying to clarify it. So like surely it's a bit disrespectful. I said like in the West we find it disrespectful to go and take a picture of someone being cremated, and yeah, he was like no problem.
mm. Tell me the way I see what I want to ask you was, did you witness any of the ceremony around the cremation? Was there any ritual or ceremony, or
No,
was there any steps involved around that?
I didn't experience the start of a cremation.
Oh, okay.
So unfortunately, I expect there was at least some sort of
Yeah, I did
ritual, although
wonder.
probably not too prolonged because they have to do a lot of different ones,
Yeah.
different bodies. But yeah, I expect there is something. But the very act itself, I guess, is a ritual. It's a
No,
fire.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just wanted to see if there was a ritual, if there were people there, and how the people were experiencing it. I just wondered if it was,
Well, I think
you know, for
families will just go up and have a coffee while if there is a family there,
okay.
they'll just go and have a coffee in the cafes above and wait. I guess. Well,
Because that's what I was getting at. Because for us, funerals and death it's a very somber, sad occasion. And
mm,
I wondered if you saw how the families and the people perceived death
I
there.
didn't.
Oh,
But yeah, maybe my assumption would be obviously it's a sad event, but maybe it's also seen as more of a just it's a thing that happens. It's Death
Yeah,
happens
and I
to
want to
everyone.
add that, yeah, but because especially because, as you mentioned earlier, if you die in Varanasi, as you said, you've escaped the cycle of suffering.
Yeah, yeah. So
As
that
uh,
probably
uh,
helps make death seem less less bad, at least in that, if you die in that area.
Exactly, that's what I wanted to get at. If people weren't as sad and as, you know,
Because in a way, that's the
taken
purpose of
down,
life, is to escape the cycles of rebirth.
rebirth and suffering and
So
all that.
if you're really into that worldview, then yeah, you're almost quite happy that your relative has managed to die in this area.
Mm, interesting. Wow, it's so fascinating seeing how different cultures handle death in a
Yeah,
completely different way to Western cultures or Christian cultures and
yeah. I
so
think
on.
we
I
really.
mean, in contrast to just to say, in Greece, up until
Mm,
recently, you couldn't even be cremated. It wasn't allowed.
mm,
You had to be buried. The church would
mm.
not allow people to be cremated
And why was that?
because, according to the Christian Orthodox Greek Christian Orthodox Church, you have to be buried. You
Hmm.
couldn't be cremated. And people that want to be cremated could not be cremated in Greece. They would have to organize with a funeral place to for your body to be sent outside of Greece, then cremated, and then sent back to Greece
Oh, right. Mm.
because there were no places that had permits to actually operate any cremation facilities.
Interesting.
And I think only in recent years, if it has changed, I think there might be a place now, a couple of places that are allowed to do it. There was a huge pushback from the church in Greece for
Really.
people to not be cremated. I think
It's
I don't
strange
know.
because you got the phrase in Ash Wednesday, is it ashes to ashes, or but we'll return to dust effectively. So, and there's no more profound symbol of that than the quick cremation of a body in terms of being consumed into dust. Or obviously, we however we die, the body will eventually come into effectively what is dust.
Yeah, in my mind, there is also a monetary incentive that the church wanted to keep the
Ah,
status quo as it was, so they don't lose money on funerals. A bit of a
okay,
cynical perspective, but I think that is
maybe,
also
maybe,
part of the reason why things weren't changing.
yeah.
But yeah, um, so after Varanasi, was there any other? Oh, actually, no. Scratch that. There's another question I want to ask you. Talk to me about food, about your experiences with food. I think one of the best ways to experience a culture is through the culture's food. And you went to India. India has
Mm.
lovely food, but you also told me you actually went and had street vendor food, which in my mind is quite hazardous.
Oh well,
because
mm. Yeah, you were
um,
saying.
yeah, because of I've seen videos online of street food and in India, and it seems that the hygiene standards aren't there in many cases. And I
Yeah,
don't know.
I think you have to forget your Western hygiene standards and when you go to India and not think too much about that. But yeah, I didn't have too much street food because I don't eat gluten, and 90% of it has gluten in. So
Oh,
in a way, yeah, like it wasn't the easiest country to travel in for my what I would want to eat, because I don't really eat that much meat either. And
mm.
yeah, like
But I
I was.
think there's a lot of vegetable curries and all that.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's what I was thinking when I came. But yeah, it will be fine because I'll be able to eat rice. I'll be able to have vegetable curries, and yeah, I was sort of able to. But then a lot of them were really spicy, and I thought I could take a little bit of spice, but yeah, like I would end up asking for really low spice, and then at least three times they came and they were
the opposite.
way too hot. So yeah, I got a bit miffed about that because sort of
Oh,
the one safe option that I was ordering was way too spicy half the time. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just can't hack the spice. But yeah,
oh,
yeah, the street food. Yeah, we went on when I joined a group tour, and on the first day in Delhi, we went on street food tour, which most of it I couldn't have because I don't eat gluten. But yeah,
Um, the things you tried. Was there anything special in the things you tried though?
there was like I wasn't particularly, and this is probably sacrilege. I wasn't that impressed by any of the food I tried. I kind of prefer the Indian food back home. I was sort of expecting because I love Indian food, and I
But
was
just
thinking,
not the Indian food made in India. The Indian food
yeah,
made in the
yeah,
UK.
yeah, maybe that's sacrilege to say, but
Was it very different then than what we get in the UK?
it depends what you're saying. Like street food, obviously, that's
No,
I'm not
yeah, I
sure if
mean
that
the other
stuff before.
meals.
But yeah, the curries were often fairly similar,
Okay.
and um, I'm sure you could find some really nice curries. It's just that I didn't, and yeah, and some of them were fine, but they weren't like amazing, at least by my taste bud standards.
Hmm.
But yeah, I probably didn't always spend loads on my meals, so yeah, maybe that was part of the reason.
Oh, you missed out. I swear you should have tried and gotten your hands on as much food as you could.
I did try a fair few different things as far as my dietary restrictions would allow them to be broad, but yeah, I just didn't find anything that was that great.
I mean, to be honest, yeah. I mean, your gluten intolerance is very tricky because up until you were in Greece with me, I didn't even realize how we in Greece also add gluten in all kinds of dishes.
Yeah, Southern Europe's really bad, even though
And
it's
I
one
was
of my favorite places to go. It's really bad
you
for
remember
what
the
I eat.
time that yeah, I took you to one of these Greek food places for us to get a cooked Greek meal, and all the options had gluten in them
Yeah, it's almost stunning how much
because
people
they
add
had added
gluten to
wheat.
stuff. It's and
Yeah.
even stuff you think you don't need to add. You surely don't need to add gluten to it. But yeah,
No,
add
there were
gluten
soups
to
and
it.
people were adding gluten, and it was like, what?
Yeah.
How is all the soups having gluten? I was like, I was shocked actually because I didn't know it
Mm.
myself. That's why
Yeah,
I took you
it
to that
shows
place
how
thinking,
pervasive it is, and like a lot of people say, gluten is not good anyway for a lot of people, even if you're not gluten intolerant or celiac. So yeah, and it makes you think like, has that always been the case? Like 500 years ago, I guess there probably was quite a lot of gluten around. Bread was a big part of the diet, but also like these days, it seems like you add gluten to almost everything, even stuff you don't need to add it to.
it's yeah, it's people in all these recipes. I remember in all the soups they had added flour in them, and I was like,
Yeah,
why does there need to be flour in a soup?
and if it does serve some sort of function, I'm sure there's some sort of
Apparently, they said they
alternative.
actually did say they were using it for thickening purposes to
Yeah,
make the
well,
soup thicker.
I'm sure you could find some other thickener which people
But
who are
but the
gluten free
problem
can.
is that no one who makes these same recipes homemade would actually add flour in them.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I don't know anyone who would do that. And I was shocked to see a place like that was making,
yeah.
you know,
I guess
cooked food.
it's a problem with a lot of this cheaper processed food, is that they often add gluten and other not so good things in,
Hmm,
which is probably part of the reason so many of our diets, but even when we think we're eating healthy, we're actually not.
for sure. So sorry, we diverged from the from your trip. So, was there any people that you met with your group in the group that you traveled with that
Mm.
you kind of made friends with, or you kind of kept in touch with, or anything?
Yeah, well, the tour's still going on because I joined a 6 day. I bought the 6 day tour, and then I later found out that that was only half of a full tour.
Oh,
So the tour is still going on. So yeah,
oh,
like, I'm sort of still seeing the photos and getting the WhatsApp texts
oh
in the
no!
group, which is it's kind of nice in a way, but also yeah, like I to be honest, I after 2 weeks in India, I think that was the right amount of time, and I had stuff I needed
Yeah.
to do back home, so I was very content to go. Although today is Holi, or I think it's called Holi. I don't know if also maybe it's Holi, but Holi is one of the biggest festivals in Hinduism where they throw
Wow.
colors,
Oh, I've
different
seen
colors.
videos of this festival.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So that would have been an amazing experience. So I could
That
have
would have
been
been.
there today and experienced that, and have been part of my tour group. So part of me would have loved to have been there, but yeah, it's
Maybe next time.
maybe in future, you never know. But
Maybe you can go for this festival next time.
well, there is so much in India. But you can visit the whole of Europe. I don't know if that includes Russia. Probably, but obviously, it doesn't include uh, the whole of Russia, but maybe
Mm.
the European part of Russia. I don't know. But like I've watched a documentary. It was mind
The
blowing when you
actual
just fit
scale,
Europe.
yes.
Yeah, you can fit Europe in India,
Mm.
and so we sort of assumed like France and Spain and Germany and England and Eastern Europe, so many different cultures, and then people say, "Oh, and you've been to India, and you've expected to have done all of India." There's just so much of India uh, that you could visit. So I've got another few trips up my sleeve if I do go back to India. But I think my I've got no rush to go back, but I expect I will go back at some time.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a good place maybe to wrap up our today's podcast. I think you've told us almost everything about your experience, and I hope.
Oh, well, there's so much more I didn't tell, but that was some of the most exciting and profound stuff. So
Well,
yeah,
yeah, the highlights, let's say, at least,
and some of the
and
lowlights.
the lowlights.
Getting lost, and well, I didn't tell you about I got a cold after that, maybe because of I don't know what it could have been, all number of things, but luckily I was able to get over the cold pretty quickly, and but then a few days later I got Delhi belly in Delhi, as you do. And then on the trip back, I got another cold as well. But luckily, it only lasted like a day or two. So yeah, I was yeah, it was a bit
Yeah,
of a, it wasn't the most restful holiday, but a very full holiday.
very nice, very nice. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it though, one way or another, and
Yeah, no, I'm glad I did it.
thank you for sharing with me and anyone who watch our podcast. And yeah, if people have their own experience that they'd like to share, let us know,
Yeah,
and we'll go nowhere again next time.
sounds good.
Sounds good.
Cool.